Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Ghana's Vice President Professor Wadr urges African leaders to compete on policies, not power struggles.
We will not agree on everything, but if we can agree on the fundamentals that Africa's peace, unity and well-being are non-negotiable, then we will already have taken a decisive step forward.
Amnesty International in a new report says over 1,800 killed as insecurity and abuses grip Nigeria's southeast.
And the right thing is for them to hold state actors accountable, to hold non-state actors accountable. Government is the only entity that has the authority to do this.
World Food Program suspends flights to Burkina Town after helicopter explosion, and authority urges evacuation of vulnerable coastal communities in Senegal. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to you across the sub-region. Well, let's begin with the ongoing African Political Parties Summit 2025 in Accra, where Ghana's Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang has called on African leaders to base electoral contests on policies rather than ballots. Speaking at the conference, she urged political parties across the continent to prioritize the needs for their citizens while in power. Reiterating the need to rise above narrow interests, the Vice President stressed the importance of working together even as strong opponents and fostering cooperation and tolerance among political parties for peace, development and progress. Addressing a lack of continuity that hampers Africa's development, she urged leaders to craft national development plans that would be respected by successive governments. She further challenged both ruling and opposition parties to ensure stability during elections, warning that instability endangers livelihoods.
Will give us the opportunity to address difficult but necessary questions, including how can ruling parties and opposition ensure stability during elections and transitions, especially in fragile democracies? How can we craft national development plans that are respected by successive governments, regardless of political identity? How can we foster political cooperation across borders to address regional threats, from violent extremism to climate change, or from illicit trade to pandemics? We will not agree on everything, but if we can agree on the fundamentals that Africa's peace, unity and well-being are non-negotiable, then we will already have taken a decisive step forward. We must envisage and work towards an Africa that, when united in vision, can defy the odds. One of the most enduring legacies of this summit will be the official adoption of the implementation framework for the African Political Parties Initiative, that is the APPI, a platform to institutionalize inter-party dialogue, build capacity, and sustain cooperation.
Ghana's Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang speaking there. The three-day summit has brought together African heads of state under the theme From Politics to Prosperity. Meanwhile, the Ghanaian government has confirmed that it has sought international assistance in investigating the August 6 Ghana Air Force Z-9 helicopter crash in the Ashanti region, which claimed the lives of all 8 people on board, including 2 cabinet ministers. Deputy Minister for Defence Brodja Jemfi made the announcement when a delegation from the Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs visited the Ministry of Defence on Wednesday to offer condolences to staff and leadership. Mr. Jemfi said the Ghana Armed Forces had already commenced investigations and was working with foreign experts to ensure a thorough and transparent probe. The Deputy Minister cautioned the media and public commentators against spreading false information about the tragedy. Paying tribute to the late Defence Minister, Mr. Jemfi described him as an exceptional leader whose vision for strengthening the armed forces had already begun to yield results.
We also want to assure you that the Ghana Armed Forces have already begun investigations into the incident. We have made requests for international collaboration, and we have received positive response in that regard. And so we want to assure you, our chiefs, that nothing will be covered, it will be transparent, and the public, Ghanaian public, will know exactly what happened and the cause of this tragic accident. We also want to caution the media and some analysts who have been churning out misinformation and untruths about this whole incident. All I want to say is that Ghanaians should trust that the ministry and the Ghana Armed Forces are going to be diligent in the investigations and transparent about it, and whatever was the cause will be known to the people of Ghana, and we'll take some lessons out of that. We know the aggressive strategy that he undertook to retool the Ghana Armed Forces. Unfortunately for us, he didn't live to see the fruits of that strategic step.
Ghana's Deputy Minister for Defense, Brogia Genfi.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And to more stories now. Amnesty International says Nigeria's persistent failure to address the worsening insecurity in the southeast has fueled a wave of human rights abuses, including killings, abductions, and destruction of property, with at least 1,844 people losing their lives between January 2021 and June 2023. The rights group warns that both armed groups and security forces have been implicated in grave violations, leaving communities trapped in fear and uncertainty. WDL's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar has more details in this report.
Its latest report documents unlawful killings, torture, arbitrary arrest, enforced disappearances and forced displacement carried out by gunmen, cult groups, state-backed paramilitary forces and security agencies. The violence, sparked by a 2015 clampdown on pro-Biafra protests, has disrupted daily life, shut schools, displaced communities, and turned parts of the region into ungoverned spaces. Amnesty accuses both state and non-state actors of operating with impunity and calls on authorities to investigate all violations, bring perpetrators to justice, and protect civilians' rights to life, safety, and freedom of movement. Isa Sanusi is Country Director, Amnesty International, Nigeria.
We believe that the Nigerian government has the responsibility. The whole responsibility revolves around the Nigerian authorities to do the right thing. And the right thing is for them to hold state actors accountable, to hold non-state actors accountable. Government is the only entity that has the authority to do this. And under international human rights law, they have the obligation to ensure that those who violate human rights are brought to justice.
The report reveals how the state-backed Ebubiagu paramilitary force, established by the Southeast governors on 11 April 2021, has been used as a tool to harass and intimidate opponents and critics of the state government. According to Awal Musa Rafsanjani, the Executive Director of Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, despite the scale of atrocities against the people, justice and adequate reparations have eluded victims of the violence.
In our country, it appears that all those basic, rights are not important or they are not necessary. The Nigerian government and the non-state actors in the southeast, they have violating fundamental rights of the people living in the southeast.
Findings of this report were shared with the governors of the southeast states and Nigeria's security agencies. According to Amnesty International, till date, no response was received. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
The United Nations World Food Programme, WFP, has suspended flights to the northwestern Burkina Faso town of Sole following an explosion near a helicopter it had chartered. The blast, which occurred shortly after the aircraft landed on Tuesday, injured a crew member and a government official. Both are receiving medical care, and the helicopter, though lightly damaged, has been safely relocated. Augustine Kohli completes the story.
The incident is under investigation with no immediate claim of responsibility. The WFP expressed deep concern, urging all parties in the conflict to respect their obligations under international humanitarian law, particularly the protection of aid workers and humanitarian assets. The suspension comes at a critical time. The WFP is attempting to reach over 300,000 people in Burkina Faso during the country's lean season from June to August, when household food stocks are typically exhausted. Many communities in the north remain cut off by insecurity, making air transport vital for the delivery of life-saving assistance. Burkina Faso has been battling a violent insurgency since 2015, led by armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. The conflict, which began in neighboring Mali in 2012, has spread across the Sahel region, displacing millions and triggering one of the world's fastest growing humanitarian crises. This is not the first time World Food Programme operations have come under threat. In August 2023, a WFP helicopter carrying food assistance to the northern town of Djibo was attacked. Fortunately, no passengers or crew were injured in that incident, but it underscored the growing risks faced by humanitarian workers in conflict zones. For now, the WFP says it will continue monitoring the situation in Soli and assessing security conditions before resuming flights. The agency has reaffirmed its commitment to reaching those in urgent need despite the worsening security landscape.
Augustine Coley filed that report. Let's take you now to Cape Verde, where the government has created a crisis office to coordinate immediate assistance for families in Salamanca on the island of St. Vincent following the heavy rains of August 11 that also battered Santo Antão. The decision was announced by Prime Minister Ulis Caro El Silva after visiting the affected community. The Prime Minister said the state of emergency declared for both islands will allow the activation of the National Emergency Fund and the mobilization of international support, including from the European Union, World Bank and FIFA, which has pledged to help rebuild sports facilities and provide humanitarian aid. Nadi Ditite completes the story.
Among the first priorities are ensuring decent housing for those in precarious conditions, repairing damaged roads and infrastructure, and delivering psychological support to survivors. The Crisis Office will bring together representatives from the Ministries of Infrastructure, Social Protection and Health to coordinate relief efforts in damage assessment alongside the St. Vincent City Council. Heavy rains over the weekend caused flash flooding, washed away sections of road and damaged homes, leaving dozens of families displaced. So far, 8 deaths have been confirmed, with others still missing as search and rescue operations continue. Local authorities say temporary shelters have been set up to accommodate displaced residents, with food, water and medical supplies being distributed by emergency workers and volunteers. Health teams are also monitoring for potential outbreaks of waterborne diseases. The Prime Minister has pledged that a long-term reconstruction plan will follow the immediate emergency measures, with a focus on building climate-resilient infrastructure to better protect vulnerable coastal and low-lying communities from future extreme weather events.
Nadi Ditite filed that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar and around the world on wadr.org. Here is a reminder of the top stories. Ghana's Vice President, Professor Opoku Agyemang, urges African leaders to compete on policies, not power struggles. Amnesty International, in a new report, says over 1,800 killed as insecurity and abuses grip Nigeria's southeast. World Food Programme suspends flights to Burkina Faso town after helicopter explosion. Authorities urges evacuation of vulnerable coastal communities in Senegal. That's on the other half of the news. We don't have a guest interview and sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Do join the live streamings on wadr.org, Facebook and YouTube. Well, back home here, authorities in Senegal are urging residents of low-lying coastal areas in the Dakar municipalities of Mbao, Charoye, Somer and Hanbele to relocate as the advancing sea continues to threaten their homes and livelihoods. Officials warn that these areas are among the most vulnerable to severe coastal erosion, a problem that has intensified in recent years. Speaking to state media, the Director of Meteorology, Aida Dongenyang, stressed that the government can no longer adapt or build sufficient protection for these sandy erosion-prone zones. Chris Faticho completes the story.
Coastal erosion has been a growing concern in Senegal, particularly in the capital region, where densely populated neighborhoods sit just meters away from the Atlantic Ocean. Director of Meteorology, Aida Jongnyang, noted that years of rising sea levels, strong tides and storm surges have eaten away the shoreline, making the communities increasingly unsafe for habitation. According to the director, the situation is so complicated that at a given moment, the adaptation measure in the face of the advance of the sea, accentuated by climate change, is to leave the area. She noted that this is a measure that requires time to implement and a planning process with accompanying measures. In recent years, part of the Dakar coastal line have already been swollen by the sea, forcing hundreds of families to abandon their homes. Government resettlement programs have struggled to keep pace with the scale of displacement, and aid agencies warn that climate-induced migration could rise sharply if urgent action is not taken. The call to evacuate comes as meteorologists warn of more intense weather patterns and tidal moves in the coming months, potentially putting lives and property at even greater risks. Authorities say they are prioritizing the safety of residents and working with local councils to identify alternative housing solutions for those affected.
Christopher Ticho filed that report. In Liberia, the government is set to commemorate the 22nd anniversary of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement that ended the country's brutal civil war and restored peace. On August 18, 2003, Liberia's warring factions, registered political parties, and civil society organizations signed the landmark agreement in Accra, Ghana, with the backing of the international community. To commemorate the occasion, the Office for the Establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Court for Liberia is hosting a lecture series focused on peace, education, and transitional justice. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Brian Parker reports.
The Accra Peace Agreement ended Liberia's brutal civil conflict and established a foundation for disarmament, political reform, and transitional governance. This Wednesday, August 13, Lema Bowie, Nobel Peace Laureate and the leader of the Women of Liberia Mass Action for Peace, will address Liberian school children about the importance of peace, civil responsibility, and youth involvement in shaping Liberia's future. Ahead of the address, Dr. Jala Bapu, Executive Director of the Office for the Establishment of War and Economic Crimes Court, describes the event as a reflection of how far Liberia has come since the signing of the agreement in Ghana. He emphasizes the ongoing focus on raising awareness about war crimes and the need for public education regarding the significance of the court.
This office was established not by guess. It's a deliberate decision of the government and people of Liberia. We began with the Accra Peace Accord 2003. That agreement called for the establishment of a TRC, a True Representation Commission, that would then take testimonies from people and investigate the root causes of the war process of establishing an accountability mechanism.
In addition, on Monday, August 18, Dr. Augustine Conan, a presidential advisor on foreign affairs, will deliver the second lecture. This lecture series, hosted by the Office for the Establishment of War and Economic Crimes Court, aligns with Liberia's efforts toward transitional justice, accountability for past abuses, and the integration of peace education, international healing, and governance. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this evening is Isa Sanusi, Country Director of Amnesty International Nigeria, joining us to discuss a new report that exposes a decade of impunity in southeast Nigeria. Well, according to Amnesty, between January 2021 and June 2023, at least 1,844 people were killed amid a surge of unlawful killings, abductions, torture, and destruction of property by both state and non-state actors. The report paints a grim picture of communities living under constant fear, with governments failing to uphold human rights or bring perpetrators to justice. Issa Sanusi joins us to shed light on these abuses and what must be done to protect lives and restore justice in the region. I started by asking him what he sees as the single most urgent step the Nigerian government must take to halt this cycle of violence.
Well, according to our report, we believe that the Nigerian government has to change its approach. And one of the best thing and immediate and most important thing for them to do is to make sure that security is restored in that area. And the security has to be restored in a lawful and human rights compliant manner, because we observe that in the past, security interventions that led to violation of human rights are one of the reasons why we have the current situation we are having in the region, whereby a violent crackdown on IPOB supporters from August 2015 led to multiple effects, including the current situation whereby so many parts of the Southeast are unsecure and people live in fear, constant fear of any attack anytime. And this is unacceptable. The Nigerian government has to do the right thing. We don't want a situation whereby this violence in the Southeast will be normalized. We want the government to take it as something unusual, unacceptable, that has to stop, not something that we have to live with indefinitely.
Well, you've documented abuses by both state security forces and non-state actors. How does Amnesty International propose ensuring accountability when perpetrators include agents of the state?
Well, we believe that Nigerian government has the responsibility. The whole responsibility revolves around the Nigerian authorities to do the right thing. And the right thing is for them to hold state actors accountable, to hold non-state actors accountable. Government is the only entity that has the authority to do this. And under international human rights law, they have the obligation to ensure that those who violate human rights are brought to justice. Nigeria is a signatory to many human rights instruments that put that responsibility on their shoulders, and they have to carry it out. We can't continue with this free-for-all reign of impunity in the Southeast. Justice has to be done. There are hundreds and thousands of victims, and many security personnel have committed atrocities.
Well, given the scale of displacement and disruption to daily life in the Southeast, what practical measures should be prioritized to protect civilians and restore a sense of safety in affected communities?
The first thing that should be prioritized to ensure that civilians and all people are protected is to restore law and order, to make sure that criminals don't have the opportunity and then have the space to hold people to ransom through kidnapping, killings, and abductions. That is the first thing that the Nigerian authorities have to do. Another important thing that they have to do is to set off a transparent, open, and impartial investigation. There are so many high-profile cases of assassinations that have still not been resolved. And all these things are only multiplying the weight of the problem that we are facing. And I believe that we have to do the right thing. The Nigerian government should promptly show beyond normal commitment, beyond normal. They have to show extraordinary commitment to resolving the issues, not to abandon the region to gunmen and cult groups and other criminal gangs.
Issa Sanusi is the country director of Amnesty International, Nigeria. And in the sport news, the 2025 men's Afro basketball began on Tuesday in Luanda, Angola, with 16 teams competing until August 24. Senegal, undefeated in qualifiers, opened with a commanding 85-53 win over Uganda, led by 3 successive three-pointers from John Jackie's Boise and a strong bench contributing 52 points. Other results saw Guinea beat South Sudan 88-80 and Egypt defeat Mali 79-54. Senegal will face Egypt on Thursday in a key Group D clash. This 31st edition runs through August 24 with group stage matches from August 12 to 15, followed by knockout rounds. Senegal, chasing its first title since 1997, remains a top contender with a storied Afro basketball history of 17 total medals. In the meantime, the Guinean Football Federation has named Portuguese coach Paulo Jorge Rebelo Duarte as the new head of the national senior team, the Silly National, as part of a restructuring plan. Duarte, 56, has extensive experience in African football, having previously managed Burkina Faso, Gabon and Togo. He faces the task of guiding Guinea through 2026 World Cup qualifiers, starting with crucial September 2025 matches against Somalia and Algeria. The appointment follows a call for applications that drew 62 candidates, and Duarte's official presentation is scheduled for Tuesday, August 12. Elsewhere, Tuesday sees crucial Group D action in Zanzibar, with defending champion Senegal facing Congo to secure a quarter-final spot, while Sudan and Nigeria battled to stay on. The Group C match on Monday, Kampala, South Africa beat Guinea 2-1 to revive their chances, and also Uganda strengthened their lead with a 2-0 win over Niger. Guinea and Niger remain in top positions with 1 and 0 points respectively. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Fali Luso and Umudani Go for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms: X, Instagram, TikTok at WDL English. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship gender program, 50/50. I am Imo Edit. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.